good, y'all? It's me, Chris, back here with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing the progression of the LGBT community and how visibility doesn't always equate to freedom. So I wanted to have this conversation because we really are living in a time, a renaissance, if you will, where black queerness is hyper visible. We have the actor Billy Porter challenging gender roles by wearing dresses on these red carpets and at these award shows. We have Little Nas X, a black gay rapper who had the world record breaking #1 single of all time. He is experiencing so much success where no other black gay man has had in the hip hop industry. We have Janelle Monáe, a beautiful queer black artist. We have even so much conversation around Zaya Wade and her transness and how Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union are providing so much support and what that looks like of listening to your children. So there's a lot of conversation going around black queerness, right? And so I could see as a straight person how you would think that, damn, we're doing so well right now in our society. Like, look at all these black queer people who are able to live freely. But honestly, that doesn't always trickle down to us who live quote unquote regular lives, quote unquote non-visible lives. Those of us who are just living mundane lives, their visibility doesn't always translate to ours. And so a lot of times when I'm having conversations with straight people talking about the oppression and the marginalization of LGBT people, I get a little bit of pushback of just like, but that, if I'm talking about someone who is who's struggling with their identity, talking about just day-to-day lives of being a person of the LGBT community, I get a lot of pushback of, well, but we have, don't y'all have this, and isn't there that? Like, just essentially saying that, like, shouldn't we be more focused about the people who are progressing? And it's really weird. I understand how we have that thought because we live in such a binary. We're taught that it's this or that multiple thoughts can't exist in the same space. And I just want to say that that's false. That's why there's such a thing called nuance, is that we can have multiple thoughts all existing in the same space, and one of them doesn't cancel out the other. It's just that they're coexisting in the same parallel at the same time. So I wanted to say is that be mindful as a straight person that just because you see celebrities being able to live their true selves, that it doesn't always trickle down to all of us folks who are not in the celebrity life, the celebrity limelight. I would definitely say that we're living in a time where LGBT people for sure have made so much progression and are definitely being able to live more authentically ourselves, but there are still unfortunately communities in this whole entire world, and specifically in America, that are invested in oppressing LGBT people, silencing their voices, and essentially wanting to erase all identities of LGBT people. And that manifests into multiple ways of bullying, straight out killing, making laws, creating spaces in which LGBT people aren't welcomed. Like, there are unfortunately still so many avenues in which LGBT people don't feel safe. And I'll give you an example for one myself. I live in the Bay Area. We are progressive, I guess, in comparison to the rest of the United States, but there are still spaces that I, as an out black gay man living in a progressive state, still feel unsafe. One of them being a barbershop. I can't go into a barbershop, not that I even want to discuss my sex life or who I'm dating, but like, that is generally the environment. You might talk to who you just went on a date with, or what you were doing with last night. And in those spaces, it's not welcoming at all for LGBT people to freely express that as a collective. Now, you might get one barber, you might get another patron who is queer, you would assume to be visible, you would perceive to be visibly queer, but that's not like the totality of the environment. It's still a space that breeds a lot of homophobia, transphobia, a lot of misogyny, just a lot of ignorance in there, a lot of like patriarchy, like niggas rule in the barbershop. And so that is an example of in which a space where I still don't feel like I'm able to express myself freely, where still feel like a part of my identity is being oppressed because of the systems that are being that are just being constantly propelled forward in our society. Even here in California, I've come across queer people who still are afraid to exhibit any form of PDA. Now, of course, there's exceptions of people just not being affectionate type of people. I understand that. But we have to understand that our thoughts don't exist in a vacuum, and that they're influenced from a lot of things, usually from the societal norms. And a lot of queer people, unfortunately, still feel uncomfortable because they are afraid of the violence that will be inflicted to them if they display their acts of affection and love towards somebody who they're interested in. Like, even in that, to me, doesn't equate to freedom. To me, that still shows that we have lots of progression and work to do, and we have a lot of things that we have to unlearn and unpack and understand for queer people to feel safe, to just express love in the same manner that straight people have that safety to do so. Anytime that I'm having conversations with straight people about the marginalization of LGBT people, just having a casual conversation, having a dialogue, just trying to unpack some things, I get a little bit of pushback. It's very much sometimes of like, well, look at where we've come from. We've progressed so much. Like, during my time, you couldn't do X, Y, and Z. And like, look at what is being visible now. And it's like, I think you are being slightly dismissive, and you'd be remiss to think that a out queer person who's talking about the oppression of LGBT people isn't aware of the progression that we as a collective have made. Like, hell yeah, I'm aware of the fucking progression, the history in which queer people have fought in this country to have rights and be seen as humans. Hell yeah, and I celebrate those. And we should celebrate those. We 100% should celebrate in which more people are being able to live freely and be loved on and seen as humans, and having resources and access to places that they never had before. Hell yeah, I want to celebrate that. But that doesn't mean because one person or a few people got it that is the correlation across the board with the rest of the community. It comes off as slightly dismissive to think that a queer person who is talking about the marginalization of people in our community isn't aware of the progression and the strides in which we have come through. Like, yes, I'm aware of that. And I will say that comes from a place of privilege, in my opinion, that you're not living this experience. You're not immersed around queer people. So you may not be hyper aware. You may not even be not hyper aware. You may not even be aware of which queer people are oppressed. Because you might just think that it's overt and it's, just being harassed out in the streets and being killed and being beat up. But there are so many microaggressions. There's so many overt manners in which people are homophobic and unwelcoming to queer people and the LGBT community. Trust me, the shit is out there. We live in a very pervasive society in which homophobia exists. And unfortunately, there are spaces in our society that people are still being demonized and seen less than for simply who they are attracted to. So I just want to remind people, and straight people specifically, that yes, the LGBT community has made so much progress and taking so many strides and being seen as humans and being seen as of value, and we're definitely not shamed to live in secrecy, but unfortunately, there are still places globally and even pockets of America in which the ideologies of homophobia still exists and people still feel shamed and guilt and feel like they're being locked out of resources. So, quite frankly, we still got more work to do. And even if it was just one person feeling shame of their sexuality, of who they are, I would say we ain't done yet. There's one more person. And for me, it only takes for one person to say, I feel this, for me to say, speak up and say, what can we do to create systems, to create structure in which you are not oppressed for being simply who you are. Just be mindful that, like I said a little earlier, that all these thoughts can exist in one space. We can champion the progression of LGBT people while still holding people who inflict harm on LGBT people accountable and creating structures and shifting the consciousness to see us as humans and as a value. Those thoughts can exist in the same space. And they do. They really, really do. Just be mindful to check your privilege. Be mindful to listen to people who are not experiencing the same identities as you. And let's unpack and unlearn some shit, y'all. That's all my thoughts that I have on this video. I wanted to make it quick and short. I just wanted to get my thoughts out. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. I would love to hear. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content as well. There's plenty of videos for y'all now. And I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!